Good evening, all. This is the second part of the lecture. As this lecture need to be conduct online, so I'm going to continue this lecture online. Uh, as the first part, we just for the review and for your refreshment. Just in the first part, we cover the different type of impression materials under which we recorded that elastomers. Under elastomers, we are dealing with the mainly four type of elastomers. Those are polysulfide, polyether. We already complete polysulfide, polyether, and silicons. Silicons again are of two types. So in today's lecture, we are going to see the types of silicon, their properties, and different type of impression making technique. So to start with, we end up here that the suggestion for the clinical use of polyether. The most important thing in polyether that you have to take care that the polyether is a very rigid material. If you are using in a case where you have undercuts, severe undercuts, or periodontally compromise, this material can be stuck with the tray inside the patient mouth and difficult to retrieve. So whenever you have a periodontally compromised condition, it is very important to block out those gaps with the help of any blocking material like wax or some other material which can be compatible in the patient mouth, and then you can make impression. In next slide, we are going to see the preparing the material. There are mainly three types of method by which we can mix the material. One is the hand mixing technique, which you can see in the first slide. I will, yeah, here. Here we can dispense the material in equal proportion as according to the manufacturer instructions, and we can mix with with the help of the flexible spatula. The mix should be the homogeneous mix. The other type of technique which we are using in our clinic is the static auto mixing technique. You can see such type of guns in your removal process also in your clinical sessions, by which we are mixing and dispensing the material. And the third is a dynamic mechanical mixing machine, which is auto mixing machine. In such type of machine, mainly polyether type of materials are used to mix in such type of machines. Here we are showing demonstrating how the impression can be made with the help of uh, putty reline technique. Here we are not going to discuss. This is just for the review purpose that equal proportion of the material like putty is being taken by the operator. It should be mixed homogeneously, making an impression. The impression is being taken out, and then it is being relined with the help of the light body. So the impressions can be made with the help of any material which is having putty and light body consistency. These are the difference between polysulfide and polyether in relation to the consistency, in relation to the working time, and in relation to the setting time. So every consistency have different working and the setting time, as you can see in the slide. This is next very important thing need to be done for the impression material, where as we are doing disinfection in our clinic also, but it is very important to know which disinfectant is being used for a particular type of material. So we have to be verified before using the disinfectant, and the instructions are being given on the uh, material box or the leaflet which are available in the impression boxes, that which disinfectant is compatible with such type of impression. Secondly, the indications or the instructions given in the leaflet that how we can use that particular type of disinfectant for the disinfection of the material. The purpose is like polyether is a hydrophilic material. Now, if we are keeping in a disinfectant for more than 10 minutes, there are more chances that the material will absorb some of the liquid uh, uh, from the liquid, some of the liquid from the liquid or the from the disinfectant, and it can change its dimension. That's why it is very important to understand this part, that for disinfectant we need to read the instruction in the material which is being compatible for that particular material. Here we have different materials, polysulfide and polyether. There are the methods shown in the picture, the disinfectant and the time how much we can expose this disinfectant to such type of material. So here we end with the first lecture, which includes polysulfide and polyether. Now we start with the condensation silicones. Silicones are mainly of two types, that is the condensation silicon and the addition silicon. As a name here, it is because of their reaction, that in condensation polymerization reaction is in the condensation form. Otherwise, it is in addition, it is in the additional form. The main in the clinic, sometime you find that and there are materials available in the clinic, and you are not able to identify, or some time in the specimen also it is kept, and they can ask which is condensation silicon or which is addition silicon. So to make it very easy to understand this, in addition silicon you will find, always you find a equal type of proportion. Means if you are mixing a putty, yeah, it is indicated that you have to be dispense catalyst and the base in the equal proportion. Or the light body, they are equal tubes, two equal size of tubes, one is catalyst, one is base, but most of the time is in equal proportion. So if the material is dispensing in the equal proportion as a catalyst in the base, it means it is an addition silicon. In condensation silicon, we have, most of the time we have one catalyst which is been same for mixing for the putty or light body or the medium body. So this will very clear indication if a single catalyst which is not mixing in in the equal proportion, and they are being used for all the consistency, that you can understand by seeing that that is a condensation silicon material. So coming to the condensation, these are the chemical reaction. They are mainly available in the three constituency: light body, heavy body, and the putty. This is the composition of the material. Base paste having this composition and accelerator. Whereas the addition silicon is also known as polyvinyl siloxane or vinyl polysiloxane. The chemistry behind the addition silicon is the terminal group in the vinyl group, crosses linkages through the hybrid group, and activate by the platinum salt catalyst. In addition silicon, there is no byproduct formed after the reaction. These are the composition of the material. The base contain this, and accelerator contain this. Now we will see what are the common brands which are available for the additional silicon material. That can be Aquasil, zinc, platinum, dimension, position of 3M, flexitime, exudate. It can be at any material, have different names, and different brands have different names. So this just for the reference for you to understand which is addition silicon. As I told you, they always come in equal proportion, as you can see in the box also. One is blue, that can be a catalyst, and one is base, that is white. Coming to the properties, working time and the setting time. The working and the setting time is very important. It is different at the room temperature and the mouth temperature. If the room temperature is high or low, it can affect the setting of the material. If it is low, it can prolong the setting. If it is high, means it is very hot, it can accelerate the setting. Whereas the increase, it can increase the viscosity also, and altering the base and catalyst ratio also affecting the setting and the working time. If you change the if you put more accelerator, it can set very fast. If you use less accelerator, it can set very late or delayed setting. So all these you have to be keep it in mind while mixing the material. Then come to the dimensional stability. Condensation silicons are less stable than addition silicon. So whenever you are using a condensation silicon, it should be poured within 30 minutes, because after 30 minutes it is said the dimension can be changed. So you have to pour very fast. That's why condensation silicons are less less used in clinic, because if you are not pouring your impression within 30 minutes, it can distort. On the contrary, if you are using additional silicon, it can be poured after 24 hours. So it is more comfortable to use additional silicon in your clinic. You can send your impression to the lab and they are the one who can pour your cast in a better way. So that's why there is more popularity for the additional silicon to be used in the clinic. Whereas the additional silicon are also ideal for elastic and exhibit least permanent deformities. And with the additional silicon, you can pour multiple casts because of the accuracy of the impression. Then come to the tear strength. Tear strength increase in consistency increase the tear strength of the material. Rapid rate of force application during the impression removal increase the tear strength. Tear strength of the condensation silicon is greater than the additional silicon. Um, First, we need to understand where the tear strength will actually come and where it is being used. If you see, when you are making an impression of a prepared tooth, we are recording the impression beyond the mark because the material need to be flow there. When we record when we record the impression beyond the margin, then only the fabrication of the processes can be a perfect processes, because we can merge the processes with the margins which are being created during the mouth preparation or the tooth preparation. So in that area the material is very thin. If the tear strength of the material is not good, it is there are more chances when you are removing the impression, this material will fracture or it will tear off. And if it is because if it is tear off, then you cannot duplicate or you cannot replicate the impression in the cast. So that's why tear strength is very important in impression making, in mainly in the fixed partial denture. Then the advantage and disadvantage. Advantage, good surface detail, but again the material, both the materials are hydrophobic in nature, good dimensional accuracy, low permanent deformities, high acceptable to the patient, good storage stability. Whereas hydrophobic, low tear strength and high cost. This is all about the additional silicon. Then working in the setting time, as you can see in the slide, these are the condensation silicon and addition silicon working time on particularly temperature and time. So if the temperature is changing, the time can be changed. Again, disinfection of the impressions. Again, you have to be use or you have to be see the guidelines which are being given by the manufacturers, which material is indicated for this particular impression material for disinfection. Most of the time, 2% glutathione is satisfactory for disinfection. First, spread of the impression material until the saturation, then immerse in the web in a disinfectant soaked towel and placed in a sealed plastic bag for 10 minutes. This is here is uh, uh, indicated because if you are keeping this for more than 10 minutes, it is there are more chances that the additional silicon will affect in the dimensions. So it is you have to be take care that whenever you are disinfecting your impression, it should be disinfect for the particular time, and then you have to be remove or wash it and dry it and then send it to the lab. Now, after impression making, as we already completed the four type of impression elastomers, polysulfide, polyether, silicons that can be a condensation and the additional silicon. Now we are going to see how we are going to make the impression with the help of these materials. So after you decide which material is more indicated for your case, then what are the steps you have to be involved? Selection of the tray, preparation of the material, preparation, making of the impression, removing of impression, preparing stone cast and die. So first we are going to see how we are going to select the tray. Now we have two type of trays available. One is a stock tray and other is a custom tray, as you prepared in third year in removal partial denture. Stock trays are readily available trays and custom trays are fabricated for the particular patient. Now, why the custom trays are indicated in fixed partial denture? Whenever you have cases where there are multiple crowns in the bridge and you want to make a more accurate impression, uh, we can use a custom tray. Second, the accuracy, the amount of material is used in the custom tray is limited. So we can limit the amount of material, so the wastage can be prevented. Second, there is a even thickness of the material which will not allow the more shrinkage of the material. So these impressions are comparatively more accurate as compared to if you are making in a stock tray. So it is preferably use a custom tray for making a final impression if you have a multiple crown and bridge. Secondly, how we can make a custom tray? Now the spacer has been adapted to the cast. Now the thickness of the spacer is also depend upon the material of choice. If you are using uh, a material which required more thickness, then the spacer thickness being according to that material. If it is 4 millimeter, maybe you have to apply two wax sheet. If it is 3 millimeter, you can vary. If it is 6 millimeters are required, then according to the thickness, you have to increase the thickness of the wax. Second thing, while making the tray, you have to make a tissue strops. What is the importance of the tissue strop? If you see in the cast, which there is no spacer, these two tissue strops are maintaining the thickness which you provided for the material. So it is very important to make a tissue strop. Otherwise, when you remove the spacer and you try to make an impression, the impression tray will seat and there is no space and for the material and your impression is going to be destroyed. Third most important thing, the tray adhesives. The tray adhesives are the material which are helping the impression material to be adhere with the tray. Now these materials can be used in stock tray as well as in special tray or the custom tray. What is the importance of using a tray adhesive? You can see there are some perforation in the stock trays which are helping in retaining the material with the tray. But the periphery area of the tray are most of the time where the impressions are being detached. So these tray adhesive will not allow from the impression to be detached from this area. And it is said that it is very important that material should be always adhere with the tray. Otherwise, the impression can be distorted because of the shrinkage of the material. Now coming next, preparation of the material. Now we have different type of material. We already read that we have different type of consistency. Now in the pictures we can see the first picture. There are putty and the tray. First we need to select the tray, the appropriate size of the tray for a particular patient. Then we can dispense the material like putty in equal proportion. One is mixing of the putty in the way that it is going to be a streak free, and then we can load the material on the tray evenly and we can make the impression. So these are the impression how we can make an impression with the help of the putty. Then preparing of the condensation silicone. As the condensation silicone, as I told you, there are the catalyst and the putty. The catalyst always are in the small quantity and the major amount is in the base. So if you see in the first photograph that they will take the major part from the base, that can be a putty, and some of the amount of catalyst is being added according to the manufacturer instructions, and it should be mixed evenly with the hand, not with the bare hand. It should be hands which are wearing the gloves like which is latex free gloves, and then loading in the tray and making the impression. But when you are taking the impression, want to make the impression with the light body, you can see in the picture clearly that a small amount uh, is being dispensed. That is the catalyst, and the main amount is being dispensed, which is the light body or the medium body. And this light body can be mixed with the catalyst. You can see they are dispensed in the equal proportion as according to the manufacturer instruction, mixed with the hand spatula loaded on the tray and making the impression. So this is how different type of materials can be used or mix with different techniques. Now the mixing methods can be different from hand mixing to the mechanical mixing. In first photograph you can see there is a hand mixing in which the operator is mixing or the assistant is mixing with the help of the hand. That can be a putty which is mixing in the equal proportion, or a condensation silicone which having the material. The light body or the medium body also can be mixed with the hand mixing. Equal amount of the catalyst and the base are being dispensed depending upon the operator instruction, and it is mixed homogeneously with the hand, and it is going to be loaded in the tray or in the syringe for the dispense of the material in the patient mouth. Second is the static auto mixing technique. In this technique, which has been available in our clinic most of the time, there are two. There the cartridge which is having the catalyst in the base, and we have a machine which having a plunger which is pushing, and there are certain tips which are being attached in the front of the tubes. So in this particular tubes and tips, we this material is mixing evenly, and we can dispense the material directly in the patient mouth with the help of the micro tips or in the tray to make the impression. Now it is very important to choose these tips. You can see there are four types of tips are available here, vary from size and ratio. So it is very important if you are using a big bore tip for a light body, maybe your mixing is not that accurate. Second, you are going to waste the material. So most of the time you have to be in clinic, you choose the wrong tip for the wrong material, because the assistant they are not aware of. They have a bulk of tips and they are giving any tip to you for mixing of any material. So you have to be very particular about choosing the tips also, because that can save your material and even the accuracy of the impression. Then the third is the dynamic mechanical mixing, which having such type of cartridge which have the catalyst in the base. It is being loaded in the machine, and with the press of button we can dispense the material with the help of the machine. It can be dispensed directly on the tray or in the syringe according to the impression making technique. Now this is very important chart to understand that there are different materials available, and they are showing a different combination with and according to the techniques. So just to it is just for the reference, like if you are using a heavy body, so you have to be use a regular body or the light body, means the for the wash. So it should be in the combination. Like over in the first, it is a monophase, so there is no need for light body. Only one material is required for making the final impression. Like here, the monophase and the light body. So it depends upon the technique which you are using and which material you can use for particular technique. Now coming to the impressions, the first impression making technique is single mix monophase technique. As the name indicate, monophase means one time and one mix, means one type of material which having the consistency which is being helping in recording the fine details also, and at the same time it will providing the bulk also. So the material is very good. As we read about the polyether, most of the time in monophase technique we are using a polyether material which having a consistency, very good consistency, which can be having more flow. The main property of this material is it is thixotrophic type of material. What is the meaning of thixotrophic? Means when we apply a pressure on the material, then this material will flow, and the consistency is changed from thick consistency to the thin consistency. So when you are making an impression with the force, it means the material will change its property from more viscous to less viscous, and it can flow in the areas which we want to record precisely. So it will work in the both way, like like as a base also for the like a putty or the heavy body, and the light body also. That's why it is called a single mix monophase technique. Compression materials are monophasic technique having one viscosity for the tray and the syringe. Usually use polyether applied to the syringe while the rest is applied to the tray. Inject the material by the syringe around the prepared tooth, air drying and spread the material. Place the tray, and it is having short working time. We are going to see all these steps in further slide. See, this is a machine by which we are dispensing the material. We can dispense the material in the syringe as well as on the tray at the same time. We can arrange, remove the excess. Now with the help of the syringe, we are dispensing the material around the tooth, so we can record the fine details. Now we are applying the pressure in the material, so it becomes thin because of the property of thixotropic in nature, and this is the final impression. Because after applying this light body around the tooth, we can make the impression with the help of the tray. Now, now the second technique which we can read, which is there, is a double mix technique. This is of two type of technique depending upon the material. A simultaneous dual mix technique and putty wash technique. This is only a difference of material. We will see in the further slide. Now, when we are using a material like heavy body, it is also said as four-hand technique. In this technique, we are using a light body and the heavy body at the same time. We will see step by step why we are saying this technique as a four-hand technique. Because in this technique, we have to mix heavy body and the light body at the same time. So we need required two people. One is who is mixing the light body, and other who is mixing the heavy body. Now, for example, your assistant is mixing the heavy body. At that same time, you have to mix the light body and load in the tray and load in the syringe. The person who is mixing the heavy body, he is going to load in the mixed material in the tray. So while he is mixing the heavy body and loading in the tray, in the meanwhile, you have to put the material around the teeth, which you mixed with the help of the syringe, and followed by you have to make the impression with the heavy body. That's why two people are required. That's why the technique is also sometimes called as four-hand technique. Now the same technique can be used with the auto mix technique. In this technique, we don't require multiple people because such type of machines are available, which are static mixing machines, which is uh, uh, which are easy to mix and fast also. So the advantage is hand mixing is not required, so the mix is free of voids. The base and the catalyst exude from the tip of the syringe, as you can see in the picture. How we can do this? The same technique, if you are using auto mixing technique, auto mixing machines. Now in one you can load the heavy body, in the other you can load the light body. At the same time, you can apply some of the material around the tooth, around the prepared tooth, and with the help of the other gun which is already ready, you can load the material in the tray. Now both are ready. You can apply some air to flow the material around the teeth, and then you can make the impression with the light body and the heavy body at the same time. This is the type of impression you are going to receive when you are using such type of armamentarium, heavy body followed by light body. These all techniques are single stage technique because we are making an impression at the same time, final impression at the same time. Sorry. Then come to the putty wash technique, two steps. In this, silicone impression materials are available in the variety of viscosity. It is two-step impression procedure where the primary impression is taken by the heavy or high putty consistency, which is been followed by the final impression, which has been followed by the light body. We can see here. In this technique, we are mixing putty first, then we are loading in the tray. We need to create the space for the light body. Either we are going to use a film, that is a thin films are available, that is of plastic. We are placing on the impression and making the impression. So simultaneously, when we are making the primary impression with the heavy consistency, the space is being created, or we need to cut the impression to create the space for the light body. And First, once the primary impression is set, which is being made by the putty, then we have to load again with the light body, which should be around the teeth and or on the some of the material on the tray, and make the final impression. So this is the final impression, which is having two steps. Why it is called two step? Because first impression you are making with the putty or the heavy body, and second you are realigning it with the light body. That's why you are using two steps, first for the primary, second for the final. That's why it is called two step technique. Then putty wash technique can be a single stage also. In this technique we are going to make an impression at the same time with the light body, but the trick is like, when you are making an impression with the putty, you just create a space for the prepared area and put the light body around the teeth and on the tray at the same time, and place the complete impression in the patient mouth. So you will find such type of impression. The disadvantage of this single stage technique, some of the time, because the putty is very thick consistency, it will push the light body and it will flush the light body and there is no light body. So if you are making a single step technique, you have to be very cautious that the light body should cover the critical area, as you can see in the picture, like the margin and all, and rest of the area can be covered by the putty, but the main prepared area should be in the light body. So if you can manage, if your impression is like this, it's okay. If it is flush, then you have to repeat the impression. That's why most of the time in clinic we are using two stage, two step technique, in which primary impression we are making with the putty and secondary followed by with the light body. Then it is very important how to verify your impression. If you see this impression, these are the fine details which are being recorded in the impression. If you see clearly, if you can understand, this is very thin area which is being recorded beyond the margin. If you see, this is the margin and this is beyond the margin. So that's why the tear strength of the material is also required, and it is very important to record this area. Now it is very important how to verify your impression, whether the impression is good or not. Now your impression should be air, there should be no air bubble or voids, especially in the area where you prepared. Intact, uninterrupted curves of the impression material should be present beyond every margins. As I showed you in the previous slide, that it should be covered all the areas beyond the margins. Homogeneous color of the material, presence of streaks indicated poor mixing, and that can lead to a shrinkage or distortion in your final impression. Good blends between heavy body and the light body. So you need to use a same type of material for heavy body and the light body. For example, if you are using condensation silicon, then the condensation silicon of the putty of condensation silicon and the light body of condensation silicon, both are of the same silicon. It should not be intermixing, because if you mix two brand, there are possibility they are not going to be adhere with each other, and your light body will be shrink or distorted. No part of custom tray shown in the impression, so proper space should be provided for the impression material. The impression should not be separated from the tray. As I told you, if it is separated from the tray, there are more chances that there is a shrinkage of the material. And from the tray, as I told you, if it is separated from the tray, there are more chances that there is a shrinkage of the material, and your final cast will be distorted. Now the last is how to prepare a stone cast. Now, according to the impression material used, you have to be pour your cast within the time. If you are using a condensation silicon, as you know the limitation, you have to be pour your cast within a half an hour or hour for getting the more accurate cast. If you are using addition silicon, you can send the cast for pouring, as it can be accurate till more than 24 hours. Second thing, you need to make a multiple pour of with the same impression. Now, if you try to understand why multiple pores are required, uh, when you are doing the casting, means when you are trying to fabricate the crown, now the crowns are being come in the metal, so there are some of the nodules and they are not come in very uh, finished way. So to check the crown on the cast, whether it is fitting on the cast or not, if you are using a first cast, there are more chances that the cast will be abrade with the help of with the crown, because both are hard surface. So it is always better we use a second or the third cast to check the fit of the crown. Once the crown is fit on those casts, we can check on the first cast, which is most accurate cast. So that's why 2 to 3 casts are needed when you are making when you are making a crown. So that's why we are choosing a material which will helpful or which will allow us to make 2 to 3 casts with the same impression. You can see here the cast having a clear margin, and we can record beyond this also. So this is the beauty of the impression. So to conclude my seminar, it has been observed that different techniques and different impression materials all depends upon the operator skills and knowledge. The under It means that you are the one who is going to select the material. If you are using a material which is very expensive, very accurate, but you don't know how to use that material, you don't have the knowledge, maybe your impression is not good. And if you're using a material which having the limitation, but you know the limitation and you know how to manage the limitation, you can make a good impression. So it is well said by Dr. M. Devan that ideal impression must be in the mind of the dentist before it is in the hand of the dentist. The meaning of this is that it is the operator who know what he want to record actually, and for what purpose he want to record or making the impression. That's why it should be in the mind of the operator that what you want to record, then only it can be in the hand of the operator. Thank you. Any questions, you can contact me during my contact us. I am always available. You just call away from me. Thank you.